It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
And when it comes to establishing your worldview, I was curious, what newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what one specifically? I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have...
Can demonic spirits attach themselves to inanimate objects? The answer is yes.
Welcome to Twat Waffle of the Week.
Greetings and welcome back to Twats. What a wild week for news both here and abroad. While I have no plans to be adding to the dialogue concerning the Ukraine, I will say this. Trump and his cronies within the GOP have shown their true colors. But with that said, somebody please explain to me why Bill Donahue makes $1 million per year. Doing what exactly? And for those unaware, Donahue is the, quote, president of the Catholic League. It is a self-proclaimed, quote, largest Catholic civil rights organization, end quote. FYI, they have no formal affiliation with the Catholic Church. From Sarah Weber, a professor of accounting at the University of Dayton states, quote, but experts were skeptical that a board would pay out a retirement package. ... I will be retiring probably. Certainly would not be enough for me to vote as a board member to pay out exit compensation. This sounds like it's more of a possibility than a certainty. Why would the board agree to exit compensation before the exit is planned, said Weber. Further along, while the heads of big nonprofits that employ thousands of people making $1 million+ salaries, Donahue runs a operation that has 12 employees, according to the 990 from 2019, end quote. As the article also notes, quote, Boston, i.e. Rob Boston, senior advisor to Americans United for a Separation of Church and State, said the Catholic League has no discernible presence on Capitol Hill and does not appear to be involved in any grassroots activity besides fundraising. In fact, the 990 reports from 2017 and 2019 submitted by the Catholic League to the IRS lists 0 expenditures for lobbying or grassroots activity, end quote. So, I'm going to ask again, what does this man do for $1 million a year? A legal strategy promoted by QAnon is being used by some parents across the United States to try and force school districts to end face mask mandates and to remove books the parents say are obscene. Quote, Bonds for the Wind's claims are not legitimate, according to education officials, insurance companies, and the FBI. But even though the group has won no legal battles, it has already celebrated some successes in overwhelming districts with paperwork, intimidating local officials, and disrupting school board meetings, end quote. As the article notes further on, quote, but the scare tactics have become a familiar one. A growing number of school districts across the country are facing similar challenges from parent activists who have adopted strategies and languages that are well known to law enforcement and extremism experts who deal with far-right sovereign citizen groups in the U.S. The Southern Poverty Law Center and Anti-Defamation League call it paper terrorism. The parents' strategy is simple. Try to use obscure and often inapplicable legal claims to force a school district to make a policy change. And while the claims have no legal standing, they have been effective at spreading confusion and wasting school districts' resources, even though the paperwork doesn't require a formal legal response. End quote. From the FFRF, quote, nearly a dozen parents and students, with help from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, filed a high-profile federal lawsuit today over a Christian revival in a West Virginia school that prompted a recent student walkout. More than 100 students, led by Huntington High School senior Max Nybert, staged a dramatic walkout on February 9th to protest some students being forced to attend an evangelical Christian revival at the school on February 2nd. The walkout, with students chanting "Separate the Church and the State," and also "My Faith, My Choice," was not only covered nationally by the Washington Post, NPR, and CNN, but also internationally. The legal complaint in the case, Mays v. Cable County Board of Education, notes, quote, for years, school system employees have violated the constitutional rights of students by promoting and advancing the Christian religion, as well as by coercing students into participating in Christian religious activities, end quote. The lawsuit charges that 2 Huntington High School teachers during homeroom on February 2nd escorted their entire classes to the revival. Students, including a Jewish student who asked to leave but was not permitted to do so, were instructed to bow their heads in prayer and raise up their hands, and were warned they needed to make a decision to follow Jesus or face eternal torment. Adult volunteers from a local church went into the crowd to pray with students. Plaintiff students observed teachers and administrators praying with church volunteers. Huntington High Principal Danielle Gleason was present at the assembly, along with assistant principals. End quote. These last 2 stories are, well, disgusting at best. A point to keep in mind concerning the debacle in Texas from the ACLU, quote, Attorney General Paxton's opinion and Governor Abbott's letter have no legal effect, can't change Texas law, and can't override the constitutional rights of Texas families, the ACLU said. No court anywhere in the country has ever found that gender-affirming care can be considered child abuse. End quote. According to the new civil rights movement, quote, Republican Governor Greg Abbott, just 1 week before the gubernatorial primary, is facing massive nationwide outrage and condemnation after ordering this week the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS, to investigate for child abuse. Anyone aware of certain medical treatments for transgender youth, in yet another example of Lone Star State vigilantism. Parents, medical professionals, teachers, even neighbors could all face criminal penalties, not just for allowing or participating in medical care for trans youth, but for not reporting to state authorities any knowledge of medical care, Abbott warned, as NBC News reports, end quote. As numerous reports I've read have stated, this attack on LGBTQ plus kids is solely as a means to garner points, as both Paxton and Abbott are up for re-election. neither has the credentials to make such statements that they have. As far as I am aware, neither of them actually have medical training or psychiatric training or training in social work. So basically every major U.S. medical association supports affirming healthcare for transgender youth. I also recommend the study they mentioned in the article. Link will be in the show notes. Finally, from Florida, quote, Florida's House of Representatives passed a controversial bill on Thursday limiting when and how teachers and school staff can discuss gender and sexual orientation in the classroom. Opponents, many of whom have taken to calling the measure Don't Say Gay bill, say it will make life harder for LGBTQ youth who already face a higher rate of bullying and a higher risk of suicide than their straight cisgender peers. But the Republican sponsor behind HB 1557, it aims to have schools teach gender and sexuality at an appropriate age and to keep parents informed about what's happening in the classroom. The legislation prohibits any instruction about sexuality or gender between kindergarten and third grade, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards, end quote. As Democratic Rep. Mike Greco states, quote, this bill in its language empowers school districts throughout the state to eliminate any discussion or recognition of the LGBTQ community until high school graduation. This is not about kindergarten through third, end quote. So, yet again, or should I say still, we within the LGBTQI plus community, we need to fight for our inclusion into humanity, and now it's affecting our kids directly. So, with that, I will leave you with this week's new to me YouTuber, Gutsick Gibbon, aka Erica. Erica is working on her master's and is a student in primate biology, behavior, and conservation. She has a BSA in pre-professional animal science and minors in anthropology and biology. She's smart as a whip and has the gift of gab. I have no problem listening to her 2 hour and 2 hour plus videos. You can find other videos concerning primates, general zoology, paleontology, anthropology, evolution, whatnot. Her favorite thing seems to be debunking young Earth creationism, which is something I do too. So, go to YouTube, look up Gutsick Gibbon, and enjoy. Peace out.